My best friend slept with my fiancée 6 weeks before our wedding. I found out and still walked her down the aisle. But not for the reason she thought. I never imagined I'd become the kind of guy who would go through with a wedding I knew was a complete lie. But when you've been gutted from the inside out by the people you trusted the most, something inside you shifts. It doesn't shatter. It sharpens. My name is Eric. I'm 32 years old, an architect from Portland. I specialize in high-end residential design, clean, efficient lines, open spaces, and a focus on integrity. Ironically, that last part, the integrity, was completely missing from the two people who mattered most to me. Emily and I had been together for 5 years. We met at a local gallery during one of those pretentious art nights I used to dread. She laughed at a sarcastic remark I made about a sculpture that looked like a rusted washing machine, and I was hooked. She had that effortless beauty, messy ponytail, oversized sweater, the kind of confidence you don't learn, you just have. We clicked. Fast. Our first date turned into an overnight binge of French films and Thai takeout. Our second involved a dog shelter and ended with me adopting Max, a golden retriever with one ear that flopped and one that stood straight up. By the third date, she was leaving a toothbrush at my place. A year in, we moved into a cozy 2-bedroom apartment near the riverfront. Everything just worked. Enter Ryan, my best friend since 6th grade. Ryan was the kind of guy who made everyone feel like they were the center of the universe. Star athlete, loud laugh, drank like a fish, and still made it to 8 a.m. meetings. We were opposites, but somehow we stuck together. He was the best man at my side for every milestone: graduation, my dad's funeral, my first real promotion. So when Emily and Ryan hit it off, it was perfect. At least, that's what I thought. They bantered like siblings, shared a love for indie rock and IPAs. Sometimes I even joked that if I ever dropped dead, I'd want Ryan to take care of her. That joke hasn't aged well. When I proposed to Emily, Ryan was the first person I called. I still remember how he hooped through the phone, told me she was a ing gem, and I'd be a fool to let her go. We hugged it out that night over bourbon. It felt right. For most of the engagement, things were good. The kind of good you don't question. The wedding was set for early summer. Outdoor ceremony, string quartet, intimate guest list. Emily handled most of the details while I focused on work. Ryan helped too: venue visits, suit fittings, organizing the bachelor weekend. Everyone had a role. Then things started feeling off. Ryan began canceling plans. Texts left on read. Phone calls that got brushed off with "sorry bro," slammed at work. He started showing up late to wedding meetings and looking uncomfortable around me, like he was carrying something heavy. Emily, meanwhile, grew distant. Not in a loud, dramatic way, just subtle changes. Her phone was suddenly password protected. She started sleeping with it under her pillow. More girls' nights out. More missed calls. She stopped humming when she cooked, stopped reaching for my hand when we walked Max together. Still, I rationalized. It's wedding stress, right? Everyone says planning a wedding is a pressure cooker. I told myself to breathe. Trust her. Trust him. Don't be that guy. Then, 6 weeks before the wedding, I found out. It was a Thursday night. Emily had passed out early on the couch after a long day of venue planning. Her phone was buzzing on the coffee table. I glanced over, not to snoop, just a reflex. Ryan's name flashed on the screen. The preview read, "Last night was everything. I can't stop thinking about you." My stomach sank. My brain went blank. I picked up the phone. There was a full thread. Months of messages. They didn't even bother deleting them. Photos. Plans to meet. Inside jokes I wasn't in on. Comments about me. One read, "He has no clue. This is wild." Another, "What if he finds out?" Emily had responded, "He trusts us too much. He'd never suspect a thing." I stared at her, still asleep, curled up with Max. My world broke apart in that moment, but I didn't cry. I didn't even speak. I just quietly opened my laptop, emailed every single screenshot to myself, and returned the phone to where I found it. The next morning, I made coffee, kissed her on the cheek, and told her I loved her. And from that moment on, I began planning. Not a wedding, a reckoning. I kept up the charade. I smiled through cake tastings, joked with Ryan during suit fittings, and held Emily's hand during church rehearsals. I played the doting fiancé, the oblivious best friend. Every moment was calculated now, every interaction rehearsed. I became an actor in my own life, and the stage was set for something they would never see coming. That first week after discovering the affair, I barely slept. I lay awake most nights staring at the ceiling, cycling through emotions, rage, grief, disbelief. I would look at Emily lying next to me, breathing softly, her face serene, and feel a cold fury that chilled me to the bone. Some nights I sat in the kitchen at 3 a.m. with Max curled up at my feet, reading those messages over and over, like I was trying to find something I missed. A sign, a clue. But there wasn't one. They'd been careful. Sneaky, yes, but clever. Ryan and Emily didn't just have a fling. This had been going on for months. At least 6. Maybe more. From what I could tell, they started sleeping together around the time we booked the venue. They'd meet under the guise of planning logistics. They texted constantly, even when I was sitting right next to them. There was a routine to it. They were too comfortable, too confident. But they underestimated me. I wasn't going to blow up and confront them. That would have given them power. A dramatic fight, a canceled wedding, no. That would let them play the victims. Though we didn't mean for it to happen story. I wasn't about to hand them that. Instead, I decided to let the wedding go on and burn it down from the inside. First, I called the officiant and asked if I could give a speech before the vows. A surprise dedication, I told him. A love letter to my bride-to-be. He thought it was sweet and romantic. Gave me the green light. Next, I started adjusting the seating chart. Subtle things. I moved Ryan's girlfriend, Claire, closer to the front. That's right, he had a girlfriend too. She was sweet, soft-spoken, the kind who brought cookies to game night and actually remembered everyone's birthdays. She deserved to know the truth, and I wanted her to hear it from me in real time. Then I began compiling everything. I created a private Google Drive folder, labeled Wedding Logistics, and filled it with the screenshots, the texts, the dates, the photos. I added timestamps, notes, even cross-referenced hotel locations with my calendar. It became a dossier, bulletproof evidence. I shared the folder with 3 people. My cousin Julia, who once told me Emily seemed off. My older sister Danielle, who hated confrontation but hated injustice more. And Claire. Claire was the only person I contacted directly. I asked her to meet for coffee. I told her it was urgent and that it was about Ryan. She showed up, confused but polite. I handed her my phone and said, "I need you to see this." She scrolled in silence for 10 full minutes. When she looked up, her eyes were wet but focused. She whispered, "They've been together this whole time?" I nodded. She laughed, bitterly. God, I bought her a bridal shower gift. We sat in that cafe for an hour, trading stories, timelines, connecting dots. She wasn't angry at me. Far from it. We were 2 people caught in the same betrayal, trying to make sense of it. "I'll be at the wedding," she said before she left. "Don't worry. I'll be watching." Over the next few weeks, I kept playing my part. Emily was still in the clouds, chatting about flowers, seating arrangements, her dress. I helped her zip it up one night for a final fitting. She looked radiant. "I can't believe it's almost here," she whispered, smiling at herself in the mirror. I said, "Me neither." Ryan kept texting me, asking if I was excited, if I wanted to sneak out for one last boys' night. I told him I was too swamped with last-minute errands. He joked that I was already turning into a boring husband. I laughed and sent a thumbs-up emoji. He didn't suspect a thing. Meanwhile, I made a few more quiet moves. I ensured the videographer would be recording the full ceremony, especially the vows. I tipped him extra for flexibility and extended coverage. I double-checked the sound system and mic placement. I emailed the venue coordinator with instructions about the timing. "I'll be giving a brief speech before the vows. Please make sure everyone's seated early." I even added one final guest to the list, Emily's ex, Noah. The one she swore she was just friends with, who had backed off out of respect. He didn't know the whole story, but he owed me a favor, and he agreed to come. I wanted her surrounded by people who knew, people who would hear every word. I wasn't nervous. I wasn't scared. I was calm, focused, controlled. The day before the wedding, I had one last conversation with Emily. We were sitting on the couch, sipping wine, going over last-minute details. She reached over, took my hand, and said, "I know weddings are stressful, but thank you for being so patient. You're going to be such a good husband." I looked her in the eye, held her hand, and said, "I just want the day to be perfect." And I meant it. Perfect for my revenge. The morning of the wedding was beautiful. Clear skies, soft breeze. The kind of June day you pray for when booking an outdoor venue in Oregon. I woke up early, not because I was nervous, but because I couldn't wait. It was the kind of still, charged calm you get before a storm. I showered, trimmed my beard, slipped into the navy blue suit Emily had helped me pick out months before, and took Max for a long walk through the park. He trotted ahead, tongue lolling out, completely oblivious to the fact that today wasn't about love. It was about the truth. I arrived at the venue before almost everyone else. The staff was setting up chairs, the string quartet was rehearsing. Everything looked perfect, like a fairy tale. White roses, soft gray linens, twinkling lights above the altar arch. The space we'd spent months designing together. One of the planners waved to me. "You ready for the big moment?" I smiled. "More than you know." The groomsmen started trickling in. Ryan was fashionably late, as usual. When he finally showed, grinning in sunglasses with a mimosa in hand, he threw an arm around my shoulders. "Can't believe it, man. You're finally off the market." I smiled and patted his back. Wouldn't have it any other way. God, he was so sure. So casual. Like what he'd done wasn't slowly tearing me apart every night. But I held it together. Kept my face neutral. We took pictures. Laughed. Even did that stupid cheers with whiskey glasses shot Emily had insisted on for the album. I played my role like an Oscar winner. Then the guests began to arrive. My cousin Julia gave me a discreet nod when she saw me. Danielle hugged me a second longer than normal. Claire arrived alone, wearing a light blue dress and a look of quiet fury. She walked straight past Ryan without acknowledging him. He noticed. "Weird. Thought Claire would have said hi," he murmured. "Maybe she's mad you didn't invite her to poker night," I replied, smiling. Emily arrived an hour before the ceremony, already in her dress. She looked stunning. Ivory lace, delicate veil, a smile that could melt steel. "You're not supposed to see me yet," she giggled as I peeked through the bridal suite door. "I couldn't help myself," I said. Her eyes twinkled. "Are you nervous?" "No," I said honestly. "I feel ready." The guests were seated. The quartet started playing a soft, instrumental version of Can't Help Falling in Love. The officiant nodded at me. It was time. I stood at the altar and watched as Emily began walking down the aisle, arm in arm with her father, glowing, oblivious, beaming at me like the world was perfect. She reached the front, handed her bouquet to her sister, and took my hand. The officiant smiled at us. "Before we begin the formal vows, Eric has prepared something special for his bride." A few heads turned. Emily blinked, a little surprised, but smiled. I could feel Ryan somewhere behind me, probably smirking, expecting a sweet, corny monologue. I took the microphone, and I looked directly at Emily. "Before we begin, I want to say a few words, not just to Emily, but to all of you. Because today, weddings are supposed to be about love, trust, honesty, commitment. And I believe in starting any marriage with truth. So here's mine." You could hear a pin drop. 6 weeks ago, I discovered that Emily and my best man, Ryan, have been having an affair. Not a drunken mistake. Not a moment of weakness. A full-blown, months-long affair. Planned, secret, and cruel. There were audible gasps. Some of the guests looked at each other. Others turned to Ryan. Emily's expression cracked. I watched her blink rapidly, her mouth falling open, one hand instinctively grabbing my arm. I shook it off. "I've seen the texts, the photos, the videos. I've read every message where they joked about how I'd never find out, about how much they were getting away with. I trusted you, Emily, with everything I had. And Ryan, I thought you were my brother." Ryan stood now. "Eric, what the F*** are you doing?" I ignored him. "I sent the proof to your families. To your girlfriend, Claire, who, by the way, is here today. And to anyone who mattered. So there would be no confusion. No lies. No spin." The officiant looked stunned. Emily looked like she wanted the earth to swallow her. Her father was already stepping forward, red-faced, shouting something I couldn't make out. Claire stood up slowly, clapped once, and walked out. The ripple of whispers turned into waves. "This wedding is over," I said. "But please, enjoy the food. The bar is open. There's no need to waste a good party. Just know this. What you did wasn't just cheating. It was cowardice dressed up as passion. And you don't deserve to stand here in front of these people pretending to be something you're not." I handed the microphone back to the stunned officiant and walked off the altar. Behind me, chaos unfolded. I didn't look back. I walked down the center aisle, past stunned guests and floral arrangements and tearful whispers. Julia caught my eye and gave me a silent salute. Danielle followed a few paces behind, mouthing proud of you. I kept going, past the reception area, past the pond with the swans. Out the side gate. Max was waiting in the car. We drove to a hotel downtown. I ordered room service, burgers and whiskey. I took a long shower, stood under the water until my fingers pruned. Then I lay on the bed and stared at the ceiling for a long time. And for the first time in 6 weeks, I slept like a baby. Weddings are supposed to be remembered for the right reasons. The vows, the dancing, the awkward uncle who drinks too much and starts telling war stories nobody asked for. Ours was remembered for something else entirely. By the time I checked my phone the next morning, the fallout had already begun. I had 57 unread texts, 9 voicemails, and 3 missed calls from Emily. A couple from Ryan too, though his tone quickly shifted from bro, let's talk, to your AF ****ing psychopath when he realized I wasn't responding. I didn't respond to anyone that day. Instead, I spent it at the coast. I drove out to Cannon Beach with Max and walked barefoot along the shoreline. The wind was sharp, the ocean cold, and the air smelled like salt and driftwood. I sat down in the sand, threw a stick for Max, and just breathed. No suits, no lies, no performance, just peace. The days that followed were a blur of consequences. Not mine, but theirs. Emily's family, hyper-religious and conservative, were devastated. Her parents had invited half their church to the wedding. Her father, who had once patted my shoulder and said I was the kind of man who restores faith in humanity, reportedly stormed out of the venue screaming obscenities at Ryan. Her mother had a panic attack and had to be taken home early. Ryan's girlfriend, Claire, didn't just walk out that day. She went nuclear. She posted the screenshots to social media with a caption that read, "When your boyfriend's best friend has more integrity than he ever did." The post went viral. Not millions viral, but enough to circulate among our extended networks. Emily and Ryan's friends started asking questions. Their coworkers, their mutuals. Ryan worked in corporate sales at a mid-sized marketing firm. His boss had been at the wedding. That Monday, he was put on probation for conduct that violated internal trust values. Word was he lost a big account, one his manager had handed him as a favor. Emily was, at first, quiet. I heard through Julia that she'd left the apartment we were supposed to share, crashing at her sister's place. Then she tried to reach out. Emails. Long ones. She wrote things like, "I made a mistake, and it was never supposed to go that far. And I love you even now. I swear I do." The sheer audacity of that last one almost made me laugh. I didn't respond. What could I say that hadn't already been said with a microphone in front of 100 witnesses? Ryan, for his part, was silent after his initial fury. Maybe he realized trying to spin the story would only make things worse. Maybe he was too ashamed. Or maybe he just didn't care. Either way, he disappeared from my life like smoke in the wind. Just as well. Claire and I talked once more. She thanked me again for not just letting it slide, for letting her see what kind of man Ryan really was. "Most people would have just called it off quietly," she said. "But you made it count." We hugged goodbye that day. She moved cities a month later. "Fresh start," she said. As for me, I didn't come out unscathed. There were people who thought I went too far. Some said it was tacky to humiliate her in public, that I should have just canceled the wedding privately. A couple of older relatives stopped talking to me entirely. One wrote in a family group chat, "That was not how a gentleman behaves." I didn't reply, but I wanted to say, a gentleman doesn't get walked on either. But many others, friends, co-workers, even old classmates I hadn't spoken to in years, reached out with support. They called me brave, said I had guts. One guy I barely knew from college messaged me, "You did what 99% of people are too scared to do. Stand up and expose the truth." That meant more than I expected. Still, healing wasn't instant. There were days I felt hollow, like my future had been ripped away and replaced with an echo. I had pictured everything. Our house, kids, quiet mornings with coffee, aging together. Even though I chose to end it, it still felt like a death. I went to therapy. That helped. A lot, actually. Talking through the betrayal, not just of Emily, but of Ryan, especially Ryan, was like pulling poison out of a wound I didn't even realize was festering. My therapist said something that stuck with me. Closure isn't about a conversation. It's about understanding that you're no longer the one bleeding. So I rebuilt, brick by brick, just like the houses I design. I threw myself into work. Took on a new project out in the hills, a sleek modern build for a retired couple who were still holding hands after 35 years of marriage. Watching them was strangely comforting. Proof that not everyone lies. That some people do it right. I also started writing. At first just in a notebook. Then, on my laptop. Just fragments, thoughts, quotes, things I'd wanted to say but didn't. Eventually, it started to look like chapters. Not a memoir. More like a survivor's manual for emotional landmines. I haven't published anything, but it's there, waiting. One night, about 2 months after the wedding that wasn't, I ran into Emily. Of all places, a bookstore. She looked smaller. Not physically, but dimmed. Like someone had turned her brightness down. She saw me before I saw her and hesitated. Then she walked over. "Eric," she said. Her voice cracked. I nodded. "Emily." We stood there, awkwardly surrounded by paperbacks and greeting cards. She asked how I was. I told her the truth. I was healing. That life wasn't perfect, but it was real. That I slept well, ate better, laughed more. She teared up, told me she was in therapy, that she regretted everything, that it wasn't worth it, that Ryan ghosted her a week after the wedding, and that she was still trying to understand how she could have betrayed someone who treated her so well. I looked her in the eyes and said, "I hope you find peace, but you won't find mine." Then I turned and walked out. And this time, I didn't look back. It's funny what people remember. When I tell the story now, at least to people who earn the right to hear it, there's always a pause when I get to the moment with the microphone. That part, especially. The room going still. The truth laid bare. They usually ask me one of two things. Did you ever think about stopping? Or, was it worth it? The first answer is easy. No. There wasn't a single moment I doubted what I was doing. Not when I hit send on the email with all the evidence. Not when I watched Emily walk down the aisle, dressed like an angel and full of lies. Not even when I saw Ryan's face contort in slow motion panic. I had to see it through. Not out of cruelty, but out of clarity. Because the second question? That one's harder. Was it worth it? Let me explain what worth it looks like in the months after a public wedding day breakup. It looks like returning deposits you'll never get back. Writing apology letters to elderly relatives who flew in from out of state. Donating dozens of wedding favors, engraved with our initials, to the local shelter because they weren't refundable. It also looks like quiet mornings. Like Max curled up at my feet while I read instead of scrolling through Emily's social media, wondering what I wasn't doing right. It looks like sleeping soundly, laughing with my team during a lunch break, relearning how to cook for one. And weirdly, it looks like strangers. I started getting messages after Claire's post went viral. Not thousands, but enough to notice. People who'd been cheated on. People who said they wished they'd done what I did. One guy messaged me from another country and wrote, "Your story gave me the courage to walk away before our wedding." I didn't think I was allowed to. That word stuck with me. Allowed. Because somewhere along the line, I had convinced myself that love meant swallowing betrayal if it was dressed nicely enough. That loyalty meant silence. That to be the bigger person was to suffer gracefully. But here's what I learned. You don't owe grace to people who've weaponized your kindness. You don't owe silence to protect someone else's comfort. And you sure as hell don't owe your future to someone who treated your trust like it was disposable. Emily's story faded from public view within weeks, as all internet stories do. People moved on to the next scandal, the next viral wedding disaster. I moved on too, slowly, deliberately. I stayed off dating apps. I wasn't ready. But I made one rule for myself. The next time I fall in love, it has to feel like safety, not like performance. And eventually, I did meet someone. Not in some dramatic, rom-com way. No bookstore meet cute. No spilled coffee and shared laughter. It was simple. At a friend's small gathering 6 months later. Her name was Mariah. She was quiet, had this calming presence, like her voice never needed to rise above the noise because people wanted to listen. We started with coffee, then walks, then dinners. I told her everything by the third date. Not just the facts, but the feelings, the betrayal, the speech, the doubts, the weight of it all. She didn't flinch. She said, "I don't think what you did was about revenge. I think it was about truth. And maybe truth feels like revenge to people who benefit from lies." That was the first time I exhaled in months. We've been together for almost a year now. It's healthy, grounded. When she's upset, she tells me. When I'm overwhelmed, I don't pretend I'm fine. We don't hide our phones. There's no need for passwords or guessing games. It's not perfect, but it's real. A while ago, I got a package in the mail. No return address. Inside was one of our original wedding invitations, burned around the edges. Just a note inside, written in Ryan's handwriting. I guess we both got what we deserved. I stared at it for a long time. Then I fed it to the fire pit and poured myself a drink. Because here's the truth. You can't unlive betrayal. You can't make someone uncheat. But you can take your story back. You can choose how it ends. People think revenge is loud, screaming, slashing tires, destroying someone's life. But the most powerful revenge? It's living well. It's walking through the wreckage with your head up. It's building a life so full of integrity, peace, and strength that the people who hurt you don't even recognize you anymore. So yeah, I walked my cheating fiancé down the aisle. And I walked right out the door once the truth was told. Not because I was weak, but because I finally knew my worth. And I wasn't going to spend another minute proving it to people who didn't.